UKLC is presented by Barclays and Curry's PC World.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the UKLC presented by Barclays and brought to you by Curry's PC World Gaming. My name is Jake Hipray Matthews, and I am joined by Dan Orks Harrison as we're rounding out the regular season of what has been probably the most tight and close-knit competition I've ever got to watch, the UKLC. Dan, everything is up in the air. We'll open that up in a minute, but I think what we should first of all do is just bring up the scores because we need to see how close everyone is here in the standings so far.
Yeah, very. I think it's still pretty evident. We had 4 teams tied going into yesterday. We still have 4 teams tied. It has shifted. London has joined the fray and Enclave got kicked out at the bottom, but that does not mean that out of player contention. Every team from Enclave up to Munster can make playoffs, and only Munster has that spot confirmed. They are the only team who are locked into playoffs right now. We have
but they're
4
not
games
locked
left.
Into first. They're not.
No, they're not locked into first either. So no, they're not locked into first. They are just locked into playoffs as of now. And we have 4 games left. Each team has 1 match, and that will decide which 4 of those 6 teams are going to playoffs. Obviously, looking at Enclave at the bottom on 7 points, it is do or die for them. If they lose their game, they are out no matter what. There is no situation where they can make it back because so many teams are above them in points. But if they win that match, specifically because it's against London as well, they will actually have a winning head-to-head against London. So that might well be enough just to push them into that playoff spot. It's not for certain, still reliant on other results, but I mean, it just shows how close it is. London yesterday were 2nd place, and now they could potentially be kicked out of playoffs. It is so tight.
Let's bring up the games for today and see what 4 games we've got coming up. For me, the eyes are on Demise. They have to take on Munster Rugby, and a win here obviously puts them into the playoffs and secures them that spot. Then it's Bulldog versus Envision. Then it's London versus Enclave, and rounding it out with Barrage versus M&M.
See,
it is a rough. Man.
You say that, but even if Demise win, that doesn't actually put them into playoffs.
Really?
It is that close. Yeah, it is that
Lord.
close. Because potentially we could have a situation where Demise, London, M&M, and Envision all win their games today, and then we would have 5 teams tied at 9 points.
Oh my.
So
it's so close.
Yeah, it is so close, and then we would have an array of different situations. There'd be aggregate head-to-head, which would be the first decided with multiple ones. Any teams left over who have tied head-to-heads, which are a lot. For example, Demise are 2-0 over Barrage and Bulldog, who are obviously not in this anymore. They are 1-1 with Enclave, London, M&M, and Envision, and if they win against Munster, they're 1-1 with them as well. So it's neck and neck, and we would likely have to play tiebreakers as well for those. So by all means, even a win today does not secure you playoffs. But if you don't get that win, you could be leaving the tournament today. So by all means, every team is gunning for it, but it is still super close.
So this win still is very important for Demise, and that is actually our first match of the day. Munster Rugby taking on Demise. This matchup is going to be important for both the teams. Munster were 1 win away from locking first in the groups in the standings and get themselves the most comfortable position in the seedings going into the playoffs. And they were upset yesterday by Envision in probably one of the most wild and exciting games we've had to watch in a while. Demise got a win over Enclave yesterday and have been on a formidable upward trend. So this is by no means going to be an easy game for Munster. I think we're in for an extremely tight one. And for me, I normally want to go, right, where are we going to talk about? What's our lane to watch? But it's Rifty versus DBL. That's going to be great. PFI versus No Name. Beely versus Diva. Proxy and Chromax versus Blue Spirits and Jeppe. Every lane is delivering in this game for me.
And I also want to talk about the stakes in this game because they are actually humongous for Munster. You maybe think, actually, I'm looking at this and we said that Munster was locked into playoffs. I've looked over the numbers and I don't think that's actually true.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm actually looking over and basically, you know how I talked about how the head-to-head was neck and neck for everyone? Out of these top 5 teams right now, so Envision, M&M, London, Demise, and Munster, there is 1 team who has a winning head-to-head against another one of those. And that is London has 2-0 over Munster. So if we get that 5-way tie, unlikely, it's a specific scenario, but if we do, we could see a situation where Munster lose the aggregate head-to-head and they are dropped out of the bottom in 5th place. So forget what we said before. Even Munster could actually get knocked out of playoffs at this point.
Oh my lord. So there's 4 spots then. There's 4 spots up for grabs.
I've looked over the head-to-heads. Essentially, it's that head-to-head that is really hampering them. So if they want to lock playoffs, they have to win against Demise. If they do win against Demise, then they actually lock first place. So that's how close it is. One win will not only lock you playoffs, it'll also lock you first place. Now, obviously, if Munster do lose this, there's still a good chance they end up in playoffs because basically every match would have to go a certain way for Munster to get knocked out. But you never want to leave it up to chance, especially with the season they've had, the split they've had. We've seen great development from this team. Jeppe and Blue Spirits have been a monstrous bot lane. We've seen Diva looking super consistent in the mid lane. No Name has honestly just been a massive jungler in a league full of junglers who've been stepping up. And DBL has managed to challenge some of the top laners in the league. So it would be a massive disappointment if this team was to get knocked out, but it is still a possibility.
We spoke to Rifty as well about the players that he had his eyes on. DBL and Aragon were the 2 players that he really bigged up as these are the kind of up and coming top laners he's keeping his eyes on. DBL has had a pretty good performance. I think yesterday wasn't quite as good from DBL compared to what we've seen throughout the rest of the season. And Rifty, he's been stellar throughout the entire season, but also, shown some adaptability yesterday playing the Maokai top lane to kind of facilitate Proxy and Beely to take over the game. He's also willing to be that side lane menace. It's a tough matchup. We say this multiple times, but when you're going up versus Demise, it's almost best just to not really focus out the top lane. Obviously, there are the bans like maybe the Volibear and the Wukong, which everybody plays that you'll probably want to see removed, but I feel like target banning out Rifty is not enough in this. So maybe look towards Proxy, maybe look towards Beely. Deny Beely from the Orianna. He's been having some really, really standout performances on that. It's a safe pick in the mid lane. It scales well, it team fights well. And overall, it just seems to suit what Demise are looking to put together.
Yeah, completely. And honestly, I feel like banning away Rifty just isn't even there's not much value to it anymore because he's shown that he is versatile. He'll pick up whatever style. If you start throwing bans towards Rifty being a split pusher, he'll fill another role for the team and they'll still be able to function pretty effectively. I'm specifically looking at Proxy. I think he's been really good for this team since he joined. I think he's been really strong in the AD carry role. So I think maybe he's something you could potentially look to target. I do think the bot lane matchup is going to be pretty hyped this game. I think Demise's bot lane has consistently been stepping up. And I think Munster, I've said time and time again, look currently like the best bot lane in the league.
To me, this feels like a final box fight for Proxy and Chromax. They've been getting better and better, but Blue Spirits and Jeppe are a whole other beast from any other bot lane in our league. And if they can overcome this, they put themselves in a great spot to qualify for the playoffs. But guys, we're going to cut to a quick break. And when we're back with Champ Select for our first game of the final day of the UKLC. We'll see you in a second. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the UKLC. We're getting ready to go into our first matchup of the day between Demise and Munster. Demise on the blue side, Munster on the red side. And for me, what that means is Rifty won't get counter pick in the top lane. So maybe we'll see a bit more of an adaptation here. I'll see what they go for the moment. We'll see what the first bans are going to be. I expect to see the Wukong come through. Both DBL and Rifty have had good performances on that pick. So it feels like something neither team really wants to give over. But for the moment, No Name is going to have his Graves removed.
Yeah, I mean, Graves still not seen as much, I'd say, recently, but still quite strong. Can obviously farm up, get a lot of pressure with that. On the other side, Munster, they're looking at those tier 1 picks. We have the likes of the Carthers, there's also the Karma, the Ash, the Volibear, the Set, all big picks. Syndra, potentially. But actually, looking at the Thresh, it's a bit of an interesting one because typically we see Jeppe have a lot of priority on that champion. But I expect to see Blue Spurs and Jeppe going for an aggressive bot lane. It's what they've been doing recently, so we could potentially see that happen again, and Thresh could be a pick that could deny that possibility. Now, Twisted Fate is a strong pick in the current patch, but also does target D.Va quite heavily.
I also feel like the Ashe is going to be a highly contested pick here. Proxy and Blue Spirits have both been favoring this massively throughout the last few weeks, and like you said yesterday, Blue Spirits is arguably one of the best Ashes we've actually got in the league. So I feel like if it's not banned here, Demise.
Proxy was the other one.
Did you say Proxy? Okay.
I think he's
I would argue Blue Spirits, honestly. But okay, so I feel like this has to be a first pick Ashe.
Yeah, I think maybe you could argue Blue Spirits is the best Ashe, but I think Proxy's had the best Ashe performance for me so far in the league. So that's the best one we've seen. Blue Spirits has been on the Calista hype train. Potentially could see that one, but Volibear now being banned by Munster, so this means you have a choice as Demise. Do you want to go for something like the Syndra? Do you want to go for the Ashe? Or are you going to go for the Set and leave things till later? So they're going to prioritize the Ashe, get Proxy on that one, which I definitely praise. It won't be able to be paired up with the Karma, but Lulu is still an option for the team. Yeah. Now, Munster, you have the likes of the Set as an option. You have the Syndra as well. You could just go something towards your bot lane like the Calista, but a little bit trickier up against the Ashe. You definitely need something that can help pressure. Maybe Calista Nautilus seems very on theme for Munster, in my opinion, but they don't necessarily have to take that right now.
Does feel like that Wukong's been left open, though, so this could be a potential for DBL. Is looking like a center locked in for the moment, and final rotation for Munster.
I like the Set, yeah. I think you threaten the center Set as a combo, but then there's also the possibility that you can flex it, so it offers that versatility to it. Malphite could be interesting, though. I mean, this could actually technically be a flex. You could pair Malphite up in a similar vein with the center, or you could just put it in the top lane. It's got a little bit of flexibility, not as much, but ultimately the end goal is it punishes the back line. But they are just going to stick with a Set. I think it's the best move here. It can go mid, jungle, top, or even in that bot lane. So hyper flexibility, not revealing too much. And ultimately, what is Set going to do? Provide threat to the back line, which you do need onto that Ashe. So Olaf going to come in for PFI. Something that's kind of going to ignore the CC that can come down, a lot of skirmishing power. I would really like the Lulu here, in all honesty. I can understand if they want to go... If they want to go something like Azir, I can understand it, but I think Lulu with Olaf is great, and Lulu with Ashe is super strong in the late game. So I think it's a really good scaling option here from Demise already. Munster need answers.
I actually thought we might see a Lulu Orianna rotation for Demise, but it looks like they do favor getting PFI onto a kind of a jungler that you can skirmish with early, kind of succeed on. So over to Munster, they are just going to pick up the Leona. So it's the center Leona lane in the bot side. Now, to me, that doesn't really look like it's going to be a fasting center at that point.
No, that'll be an AD carry center, most likely. Unless it's something new I haven't seen before, it'll be an AD carry center, which is viable in the patch. You now get 8% chance of getting a soul per kill, so makes sense in that regard. But it does mean that you're going to be lacking a bit more damage into the later stages. Obviously, with the AD carry center, you're not going the tank build. You're not going the sort of Frozen Mallet and the Black Cleaver, so you're going to be doing a bit more damage, but it's incomparable to Demise. It's very much early game focused. And we're looking into the second rotation of bans. Malphite denied, which is a bit of an interesting one. Obviously, team fighting power and engage is a big factor here, but we could typically see that as something Rifty would bring out. And then... it does potentially suggest a Wukong, though. If a Malphite's getting banned, it suggests there could be a Wukong coming in for Munster.
DBL and Rifty both have really good performances on that. Demise looking to ban away a few more junglers. No Name has had some pretty good performances on the Lee Sin as well, so that is a potential ban here if Demise look to pinch the pool a little bit more. The Kha'Zix has been left open. You've seen a rise in the priority of the Kha'Zix. That's going to get banned away. And like you said, the Wukong has been left open, so Munster may just go to pick for it now, or they might want to get themselves something like the Oriana or the Azir in the mid lane, take their pick of the litter on those two, and then make sure they get the counter pick for top laners. Remember, this set is still technically flexible. They're going to lock in the Trundle. They want to get a good counter mid.
Yeah, so locking in the Trundle essentially means that you're moving that set most likely to top lane. Could still be flexed to mid, but for now, that's where I expect it to be. Bit interesting, they ban away the Malphite when they plan to pick Trundle. Like, to me, seeing the Malphite ban was thinking, okay, it's going to be a Wukong. That's a pick that's really good into it. But the Trundle obviously is fine into the Malphite because you can ult that, drain a lot of stats. Yes, it's a threat onto the center, but ultimately the center has tools to sort of deal with it. And now, Oriana pick up for Beely is great, gives even more shielding to your composition. And the final thing you need to round out this composition is some frontline, some solid CC to come out, some engage potential. You have that from the Ashe, but I'd like someone who can follow up on that for your team comp, because I think the back line is already really flawless for Demise.
Now, if they actually do go for this Silas, the power of the Silas of the Subjugate is really, really strong on him. It does make him really hard to kill, but looks like the Wukong is going to be the final lock-in for Demise. This, to me, looks like a textbook Demise as of like their recent playstyle, where they've started to be on this massive upward trend where they don't just play through Beely. Obviously, the Maokai is normally what they'd pick on this, but with the Trundle picked up, it's a little bit too risky to go for that. As D.Va throws down the gauntlet and locks in the LeBlanc, this is going to be a pretty spicy one. I feel like we're seeing, this is typical Demise draft here, but for Munster, I feel like we're getting something a little bit new here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of strength in Munster's composition early. There's a ton of skirmishing power on the top jungle. Bot lane as well can really challenge in fights. And mid lane, LeBlanc is great for that setup. But that is where it sort of starts to fall off. The damage is extremely lacking in the later stages. Mid game, it should be able to handle okay if they're ahead. But later on, I mean, you're really going to start struggling against Demise. Demise have a very easy to play teamfight composition. When you get to the later stages, you have Wukong Oriana for a ton of disruption. You have great options to buff up with those shields. It's essentially Demise's game to just stall out and get to the later stages. Munster, the pressure is on you to set the pace of this one. And it's something they've lent into across the split. We've seen them continuously look to apply pressure in the early levels, but they absolutely need to hear. Otherwise, Demise will just roll them in the late game. It's honestly that simple. Unless they have a massive goal lead or they play well above the level of Demise, it should be a really free one for Demise just to take with how powerful their tools are.
Yeah. I really like this draft here for Demise. And again, it's something they've just been executing on, I'd argue, almost flawlessly for the last few weeks. They've got all the tools necessary for them, but this is Munster. This is the team who have consistently been at the top. Now, it's obviously been very close and it's been a battle, but they have always sat at the top of the standings. Munster have proven to us that they are one of the strongest teams in the league. That loss yesterday to Envision was probably a real shake to the system, and maybe it's made them kind of open their eyes a little bit going into this game. But for me, it's really, the onus is still on Demise here. This is a very tried and tested roster they're playing versus, a very tried and tested team they're playing versus here. And Demise, while they've had a good few weeks, a win here is going to be massive for them. It actually secures that there'll be 4 spots going into the playoffs, which is crazy because by the end of our first game of the day, when we only have 3 games left, we still might have just so many spots open. Everything is just so tight right now.
Well, that's the thing, is this game can decide things massively, because if Munster come out and win this one, not only do they lock themselves in the playoffs, they're locked in it first, and that essentially cuts down the number of spots available for the others. But if Demise wins this, things are very much still in the air, and the rest of the results will have a massive knock-on effect. So Munster, you know, we like to think of them being in the number 1 spot, being comfortable. They are not. In fact, because they're head-to-head, they're actually in a really scary position, because most of the other teams, if they don't win a game, you know, there is a chance they just get knocked out outright, but there's still a fair chance they'll have a head-to-head. But Munster, if you get to that point where you're in a big tiebreaker, you auto lose it. And even if you do remain in playoffs, you could see yourself slipping down from a potential first to maybe even 3rd or 4th.
It's hairy for both of these teams. Demise, even with a win here, they don't guarantee playoffs. Munster, if they lose here, they are not guaranteed playoffs. Everything is so tight on the final day of the regular split here at the UKLC summer season. 2 teams have taken to the Rift, and for now, looks like we're just going to have a defensive start. No cheesy invades to start us off.
Minions have spawned.
So junglers are both going to start up on the same side of the map. PFI may go leashless. He's an Olaf, so he should be able to do that. Same for No Name, to be honest, as well. All right, Orcs. So where's our attention early in this game? Where are we looking at in the early game?
Mid jungle, I think, has to be the one. I think specifically looking at what No Name can do. If he can get some pressure down, he can potentially set up D.Va to have success in the lane and across the map. I think freeing up a LeBlanc to move is always going to be a favorable situation. And then you can look towards bot lane a little bit later and start to apply pressure there.
All right, all eyes on them for the moment. Already a bit of action breaking out in the bot lane. Jeppe will just land the Zenith Blade, but traded back onto pretty poorly. So Demise actually will be happy with that start. Nename's gone buff to buff. Just one thing to note here. PFI doesn't do a full topside clear. Just does blue and Gromp, and then he's going to make his way over towards that red, I would assume, at this point. However, still, we can see that Munster are getting shoved in the bot lane. Not Munster, sorry. Demise, they are getting challenged a little bit in this bot lane, and with No Name waiting in a wings, the Zenith Blade and the Q available. Great hawk shot by Proxy. Means he won't get spotted out. Billy will take a pretty ill-fated trade. The Clockwork wind-up does mean he's able to kind of regain a little bit from that, but overall, not particularly what he wanted. No Name will get spotted out on a ward that PFI placed down earlier. They are now tracking the jungle, and I think with the fact he can see the double buffs, he knows exactly what No Name's first clear was. So PFI just going to move in and steal away these Raptors.
Yeah, good opportunity from PFI here. He's going to be able to pick this up and then should be able to lean into that scuttle. Now, mid lane priority being not on his side isn't too much of an issue because Rifty is just crashed the wave in top. And although he's recalling, you don't know where he's going to be. You know, he could just be going down a pair up with PFI, so you have to play a little bit cautious. Now, you see the pings come out from the side of Munster. They're kind of aware that PFI went for an invade. But not exactly sure which camp he took, but No Name will be able to spot that out in a second. And it's just nice to see the Olaf getting a bit of a farm advantage over the Trundle. You don't really want to skirmish too much with him early because the Trundle being able to sap your attack damage with his bite is really significant and can be quite punishing against any AD champion like an Olaf.
Yeah, just kind of taking the opportunities you can when they show up here for the moment for PFI. Billy being bullied around a little bit by D.Va. D.Va's actually up in CS and has been shoving him in, trading fairly effectively into him. And Billy's actually kind of used a lot of his mana just to keep up in the wave clear and also just to shield himself versus D.Va. Does have the teleport while D.Va has the ignite, so he is able to get a cheap base off real quick and maybe get himself a Dark Seal or a Doran's. Looks like he's going to get both and then just return to the lane if necessary. May even hold the teleport for the moment, but PFI looking to see if he can find something onto DBL. There's a pretty big wave, though, to cut through them. They're going to start this trade off. DBL has got that face breaker available. Can go for that slight snare, but Haymaker's going to get used. The CC's on, and PFI's low HP. Rifty flashes over to secure the kill. PFI, great play around the vision.
Yeah, it was a beautiful flash.
First blood.
Oh, see more fighting here.
Yeah, they're not done, Proxy. Just trading out. Heal's going to get used by Chromax to keep Demise ticking away at that fight, but with the gang going down in the bot lane, in the top lane, you can see that No Name is headed over, and he's just going to start up this dragon nice and early.
I think the significant thing about that top lane fight was it was really well played from DBL, in all honesty. One of the big priorities had was clearing the enemy minions away. And that essentially forced all the minions to aggro onto PFI and Rifty. They were taking a ton of damage. You could see that PFI nearly went down. But it's just a really nice flash into the bush to kind of drop that aggro there. But a close one. But ultimately, the reward does go over to Demise. And we see on the opposite side, Munster picking up the dragon. So it is important for Munster to be getting these early dragons. Whenever we talk about a team with early win conditions, you want that soul to be as soon as possible. especially if there's going to be an Infernal or an Ocean Soul, both of which are incredibly powerful. And the end result is you're looking to force Demise to fight you before they're ready in terms of their scaling. Now, what Demise did in Counterpoint was they got a gold lead top. So it kind of plays into the other side of things. It's like, okay, you want an early dragon? Well, we're going to get a gold lead and we'll win that fight. Is the other answer to it. So makes it a bit difficult for Munster because ideally they want to be ahead and they also want to be leading on those dragons. So not the best trade, but not exactly a bad one, and important for Munster to keep on top of those dragon spawns.
And it unlocks with the kill going over to Rifty, it unlocks a potential win condition in Rifty being able to also be a split push pressure on the Wukong. Wukong kind of leans into both the things Rifty likes to do. He's been showing off that he's a good team fighter and playing for the team. You can obviously do that with the double Cyclone available to him, but also the ability to be a side lane menace. It kind of suits Rifty down to a T, the Wukong. So getting an early kill onto him. He has the Sheen, he has the Cole. Should be feeling pretty comfortable in this lane versus DBL for the moment, but still need to keep his guard up. There is a slight CS lead over to DBL. Proxy and Blue Spirits, every time we look down here, going for a scrap. Jeppe going to take a lot of damage as they do land the Tether out from Blue Spirits. No Ashlar are available yet.
Though. I mean, you just see Proxy playing back and forth at the edge of his max range. So Jeppe was fishing for the engage, but could never really find it and got a ton of damage down onto them. I think Proxy's Ash really is pretty stellar.
It really is. He's really showing he can go up against the best. However, Beely finally able to get himself a slightly positive trade. Is PFI waiting to potentially find out No Name here? Or a gank onto DBL. DBL's going to show his face, but he's going to show off who's. Rifty comes in, gets the Cyclone off. They use the pillar. They got the Subjugate. Rifty, second charge gets used as the Ragnarok comes down, slamming Rifty in, but Rifty's able to survive long enough to get the kill and return. It's a 1-for-1 top lane.
Ends up being a 1-for-1. A little bit early from Rifty. I don't think he expected No Name to be there. And ultimately, they were able to get enough damage down onto him. But it's a 1-for-1. You're still fine with that. And critically, Rifty got another kill there. So this Wukong is starting to look like a really big threat right now. And PFI, he's feeling confident just to go straight for this Herald on the top side of the map. No swaps actually came in from either team. He's just willing to play on the top side and leave his bot lane in the 2v2.
I'm very good at taking these neutral objectives early. Got a lot of damage to work with, got a lot of sustain to work with. So, gonna pick this up. No contest, no swap coming down. Looks like Munster really aren't interested in actually going for the swap at the moment. It's just going to be an early Rift Herald. We may see it go down top lane as Demise have been playing through Rifty a little bit more in this game. Proxy and Chromax have been able to handle themselves. Solar Flare not available to Jeppe yet, so he has to land that Zenith Blade if he wants to find an engage. And Proxy's going to spot No Name out with a Hawk Shot, so they have the information to work with and where he is.
Yeah, critical thing is the cleanse being down for Proxy, so even with the wild growth available, you're still in a bit of a precarious position. An engage could be deadly for you if there's someone to follow up, so just playing at a safe range at this point, and you're kind of comfortable doing that as an Ashe. You have the body, which is good at keeping people at bay. You can pick up CS with that. You have a long auto attack range. And honestly, so far, this game has been pretty good for Demise. Munster are the ones who need to have the early agency. Everyone's past that level 6 point. We haven't really seen too much action, and most of it has been Demise favored. The only thing really going in Munster's side is the fact that they have that dragon, but missing out on the Herald, being down in gold as well, means they are in a bit of a rough spot. They need to find somewhere to get that sort of gold lead. Otherwise, Demise will happily just challenge them on the 3rd or 4th dragon. And once they win that, it's looking pretty rough for Munster.
Yeah, it really is. Diva has been doing his best to keep on top of Beely. Up in CS, he's been bullying him around as much as possible, but for now, Beely's just kind of absorbing that pressure, dealing with it. PFI is making his way over towards the mid lane. I think it's just to kind of spot out if Diva's going for a rotate. He has got this Rift Herald available. Have to see where he wants to throw it down. There is a dragon spawning up in 13 seconds, so he may slap it just to get mid control so they can contest this dragon. The resets to come through as Proxy is gone back to base. Chromax is actually already down around the river. They got teleport, not available on Rifty, but it is coming up on DBL somewhat soon as Billy gets chunked out of the lane by Diva, and I believe this actually does mean that Munster should just be able to get control of the area. Jeppe's gone
on a big
very,
flank.
very long way around, and Chromax Dodges out on the main part of the solar flare, gets the wild growth off onto him, and Proxy throws out an enchanted arrow, is able to clip on, and Jeppe going to get slowed, absolutely chunked out and taken down. Chromax secures the kill. This should just be a dragon picked up for Demise.
Yeah, a bit over-aggressive from Jeppe there, and honestly, great patience from Chromax. A lot of players would have just flashed in that scenario. He knew he had the backup, knew he had the team, went for the fight, and now we see Beely TPing back in with full HP. It looks like No Name's not even bothered with the contest.
Yeah,
that is huge.
Diva attempted just to see if he could get a W kill off to make sure he could steal it, but wasn't able to.
And I want to emphasize how big that dragon is, because we are now looking at earliest possibility is about a 27-minute Ocean Soul for Munster. By that point, Ash will be looking at probably 2 or 3 items. We're likely on the 3-item point. Beely will be super powerful. This composition will really be online, and Munster will struggle to win a team fight then, I feel, if they're still even in gold. So right now, Munster's Dragon Soul win condition has been delayed. It's no longer nearly as viable. And you might be looking just to challenge them in team fights now before they get a bit too much to deal with. Herald going to get thrown down for some extra plates. And again, this is just more gold for Demise, making things more difficult.
Can Proxy get that last plate in time before the charge comes down? No, he can't. But they are able to get 4 of the plates off on this top side, on this bot lane tower. It's going to be a lot of gold injected into Proxy.
Okay, and they're at almost a 2k gold lead already.
But also look at like what soul we've got. It's an Ocean Soul. So if Demise do get that, one of the things what Olaf has is he does fall off as the game goes later. With an Ocean Soul, he actually remains a champion into the later stages. He's so hard to kill. Soul,
with Lulu, with Oriana, he doesn't really fall off anymore. He's still going to be super relevant. And remember, Munster is a very low damage composition in the later stages of the game. They will struggle to cut through the Olaf. It just won't be as possible. Blue Spirit is going to be going lethality after the Manamune. And obviously, it's not a high DPS champion. The Senna, LeBlanc as well, isn't great at cutting through tanks. So I legitimately feel like this Olaf is going to become a powerhouse later on if he does get the soul. But again, even if they don't, it's the matter of delaying it from Munster. Munster are on the clock. Munster's time will eventually run out. And when you've missed out this second dragon, you're about 2,000 down in gold. I am legitimately really worried for them. It doesn't seem like much, but they need to start finding objectives. They need to start getting control. Otherwise, they're going to start struggling to get this game back in their hands.
All right, well, lane swap actually comes out from Munster. Looks like they're just going to try and get some plates up in the top lane, but Rifty, with PFI and Chromax at his back, is perfectly equipped to hold this. He actually just jumps in, goes on for the Cyclone, gets stunned, but he has a second knock-up available to him. The Railgun comes out into the Solar Flare. Rifty flashes away. PFI hunting Jeppe, able to take him down. But the tower will fall in the top lane, in the bot lane, as DBL is able to get a kill onto Proxy in response. So 1-for-1 globally.
Yeah, ends up being a 1-for-1. They do get a flash away from No Name and Blue Spirit. So in terms of summoners, you're trading a little bit up for the side of Demise. You're also getting control on the correct side of the map, which is top side, where the Herald's going to be spawning soon. But the answer does come back onto the Ash. Proxy ends up burning Cleanse, but not his flash, so not as bad. And again, you know, normally when this team who's behind and they're trading evenly, I'm like, yeah, this is good. But Munster need to be trading up in these scenarios. Anything that's bringing more gold to both sides is just helping out Demise hit their scaling points. We've now got the full item for Proxy with that Blade Rune King. Beely may well be able to recall in a little bit and pick his full item. We've got the Triforce for Rifty. Again, these spikes don't really end the game for Munster, but it just shows these champions getting stronger and stronger, and they will eventually reach a point where Munster can't surpass that. So for now, Proxy and the rest of Demise happy to use their control of the top side to start working on this Herald.
Yeah, they're just going to pick it away. No Name really not able to go in and help with this. Beely has that ball placed in there, almost beckoning Munster to attempt it. That's the second Herald over to Demise. Like you said, Munster, the onus was on them to have the early game, and Demise have been the ones with all of the early plays. Able to get that second dragon, able to get both of the Rift Heralds. They got first turret blood in the bot lane. Shockwave actually lands onto D.Va to interrupt his dash. D.Va does look for the chains off onto Beely. Does trade out a little bit, but not really the trade he needed. It's Beely able to get off. It is an Ocean Soul, though, so there is plenty of honey fruit around to heal up on.
things looking really good for Demise, though. I feel like the biggest shift we've had for this team is the fact that there are multiple carry threats compared to it just really being Rifty, and the fact that coordination as a team has been a lot better. It feels like they're great at finding plays, finding the setup, and playing to the win conditions. And what I like in this game is that they haven't just sat around and gone, okay, let's scale, let's do nothing. They're challenging Munster. And Munster being a little bit caught off guard. And you're now in a spot where third dragon spawning. If Munster don't get this, the sole win condition for them is gone. It is just gone. If they miss this dragon, it is out the window. It would just take too long for it to become available. And you have to find some other way of getting an advantage in this game. Now, Engage coming in.
The flare into the railgun. That's the wombo combo. Wild Groves onto Chromax. Proxy fires out the arrow, trying to put the DPS down. DBL slams the team in, able to get himself one. As Proxy's able to answer Ack out. In the meantime, Rifty just running amok through the back line. Diva takes him down, though. And it's a 2 for 2 for both of the teams.
Yeah, but the health bar is a little bit more favored onto Munster, so they should be able to make a move on this dragon. Now, this doesn't exactly hamper Demise massively, but it does mean, as we're talking about, that sole win condition, although late, is still going to be alive at this point. So, big win for Munster there, even if it wasn't even trade in terms of kills.
This is trading up. You get 2 kills, they get 2 kills, but you also get this Ocean Dragon. Huge stuff for them, but you already saw Rifty was being a bit of a nuisance, able to kind of hold 3 members down. Got the Triforce. Got the buildings of what we would assume to be a Death Dance. Or maybe a Tiamat, actually. I'm not sure.
I think Death Dance is the ideal one, just for the team fighting power it offers. Honestly, I feel like there's going to come a point where Proxy and Beely both get defensive items. You know, if Proxy gets Blade, Runans, and then Death Dance, and then Beely gets, say, the Seraphs into Spellbinders, pretty common to see, but maybe like a Banshees after that. I think the game is just very extremely difficult after that point. Because you saw there, even with a good engage, Munster struggling to find the success. And sure, you can definitely say Proxy had Flash was a factor there. But it's just going to get harder and harder as the game goes on. But Munster's still in it. Down in gold, up in those dragons now. And
Proxy has Arrow onto Blue Spirits. They're going to chase him down. He's dodging away on the Solar Flare. The root will connect in, but PFI able to follow up the kill. Jeppe low HP. As Rifty slides in to secure that one. That's a 2-kill lead over to Demise, and now they can finally crack open this mid lane turret.
Loving the confidence from Demise, but honestly, what were Blue Spirits and Jeppe doing? Standing up in that position, really questionable. You are asking to get hit by an Ash Arrow there, especially when you are flashless with Blue Spirits, and that's mid tower down, second tower for Demise, 2 more kills. They are so ahead in gold now. It's really looking rougher and rougher inside of Munster.
Stealing away the red buff as well from No Name. Overall, gains for Demise. Rifty slapping away at this top lane turret, looking to get the last tier 1 down. DBL waiting in the wings. Diva, Blue Spirits, everybody is up here, but looks like they're not really going to be able to get too much. PFI has to be careful. Doesn't actually have that Ragnarok available to him. He gets Space Breaker back. Rifty going to take the chains. Diva makes sure that they do connect with the double distortion forwards. Rifty has to jump away for the moment, but PFI being CC'd and just chased down. Blue Spirit secures the kill. Chromax takes some chains as the railgun's going to pop. Get a bit of bonus damage off to him. Rifty jumps in with a Cyclone to try and zone him out for the moment. Jeppe on that flank. It looks like that is going to be all that Demise want to take, but Jeppe's just going to come and interrupt the base here.
Yeah, they should be able to catch him in this situation. Diva come in.
Oh, dodges out. Oh, the shutdowns there. DBL gets it.
That's actually pretty big. Now, they're not going to be able to go for the Baron, even with it just spawning there, just because their damage on it is so low. But it gives them a lot of control at the top side of the map. They're going to be able to take this blue buff, going to be able to take this tower. And that's the first overstep we've seen from Demise. I think getting a little bit too confident, didn't have the cooldowns to work with, got a bit overzealous. And yes, they get that 1 turret, but this has allowed Munster trade back in return. And that shutdown they managed to pick up from Rifty, pretty significant as well.
That was a nice injection of gold onto DBL, who has been struggling this game. Is starting to bounce back a little bit here. Proxy closing in on the Runan's Hurricane on the Ash, and at that point the team fighting starts to get really nasty. Level 11, so got 2 points into the Ashar. Actually, with a Cloud Drake, it's a little bit slower on cooldown as well, so it's a minor thing, but it at least means that they have the ability to make these plays a little bit quicker and a little bit more regularly.
Yeah, now has that Runan's picked up. We've seen The Oblivion Orb and the Seraphs not quite stacked up, but from Beely. So a lot of damage from that potential shockwave that could come in. Now, do you see Dragon spawn up in a minute 20? Honestly, Demise don't need this one, but they likely will look to challenge the fight with their gold lead. But again, this Dragon doesn't make things impossible for them. It just puts Munster close to that Ocean Soul win condition. So a bit precarious. I do think if Demise get this Dragon, it does make Munster's life extremely difficult. But we'll have to see. For now, red buff picked up by Proxy. Seraph's fully stacked by Beely now, so a pretty comfortable spot to be in.
Yeah, all that kind of assassination, like, ability that D.Va had over Beely in a 1v1 feels somewhat alleviated now that the Seraph's there. He has the double shields from the Command Protect as well. And the Merc Treads. Does feel a little bit rough. D.Va is going to at least be able to pick a turret up for the team on the bot side of the map. So 2 turrets now down. Munster are trying to keep themselves in the game as far as gold goes. They're 2k down at the moment. Ocean Drake spawning up in 20 seconds. Bot lane is pushing in and top lane's pushing in. So Demise, they're going to give up quite a lot here. If they look for the Ash Arrow, it does connect onto DBL. Shockwave actually gets whiffed by Beely. The fight is on. Railgun's going to get fired out. Jeffe jumps into the backline. Jeffe getting zoned away. Great pillar gets used as Rifty throws out the Cyclone and secures himself the kill. Gets jumped back onto once again. The shielding is just too much from the Lulu.
Just really nice. I saw a beautiful flank coming in from No Name and D.Va. Demise just instantly acted and charged towards the 3-man of Munster. Able to get a quick kill, and health bar's a little bit low, but they're going to have TPs coming back in. They really want this Dragon.
Shame Beely with the shockwave there. It was a little bit off, but not the end of the world. D.Va jumps in for a little bit of a trade off on to Beely. Gets polymorphed just as he pings back, and this should just be the second Ocean Drake over to Demise. 2 apiece. And like you said, this is a big loss for Munster at this point. That soul gets put so far away from them.
33 minutes. That is when Demise are forced to fight a Dragon. And that is so late in the game. By that point, we absolutely will have 3 items on Demise's members. Particularly, Proxy will likely have a Death Stance. Could also go the Infinity Edge for damage, but I think Death Stance just makes LeBlanc's job so much harder. Beely could pick up a Banshees. Just really difficult. And you can see across the board, everyone on this side of Demise is ahead apart from this mid lane. D.Va is the one person who's managed to pull up a lead, has massive amounts of farm, but it's a LeBlanc. There's eventually going to come a point where you're just not able to output the damage. But for now, you're looking for a pick onto Rifty.
Rifty trying to get away with a cheeky base, but it's just going to pop the Cyclone onto DBL. Gets the face breaker off onto the right one. Great Cyclone again, and Rifty is out nice and free. If you've never shown bot lane, Demise will take this opportunity to move over and get vision control around the Baron pit. You're saying Munster have a fairly slow Baron, but Demise, theirs is going to be somewhat speedy, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fast, not only fast, but healthy. That is one of the critical things to starting a Baron, is that having the shielding, or in other cases healing, to keep yourself healthy while you're doing it. But I've seen a fight break out here.
Yeah, Blascone's going to get used. Teleport baited out by DBL. Rifty doesn't have his available, but
that's true.
On his way to join the team. That's massive.
That's a 6-minute cooldown. And what Munster could have looked to do is start a fight at Baron while Rifty and DBL on the side lane. Then you TP DBL in, and you take a numbers advantage fight. That's no longer possible for another 6 minutes to make use of that. So again, these things are just slowing down Munster's opportunities to put pressure on Demise. And Demise are just playing it really well. They know, even though they could potentially start up this Baron, they're never going to. There's no need. They are confident in their scaling, and they will just continue to lean into it.
Like I said, trying to get those items picked up as well. It does look like Proxy is going down the Infinity Edge route, though, with a pickaxe in the inventory.
Yeah, more damage, but in honesty, I'm not a huge fan. I honestly wouldn't be against, like, just an Aegis. Like, you pick up the Aegis for the resistances, and then you build the Infinity Edge. I think that's a nice build, because there's going to be lethality coming out from Blue Spirits. Yeah, Knight. There's going to be a lot of magic penetration from D.Va, but either way, we do see Beely is going towards that Banshees, which I do like. I think ultimately, if Demise's carries stay alive, they win these fights.
I'm assuming he is that confident in Chromax keeping him alive.
I get it.
I'm assuming he has a lot of faith in his support.
My argument is that
I can do more damage. I'm not going to get killed because Chromax is going to keep me alive.
My argument for the Aegis is that you're going to get so much extra effective HP from the shield, the wild growth, that essentially some extra resistances gets a ton of mileage. Like
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
imagining you're getting 1,000+ shields from Beely and Chromax in a fight, having all the extra resistances just gives you so much value. So that was my discussion for it, but I can understand maybe backing on a certain amount of gold. Pickaxe isn't exactly a bad pickup, or even the Infinity
I
Edge.
completely agree with you. I'd rather have a Death Stance if I was the Ashe in this position, especially with how strong the LeBlanc is. So she got a 60 CS lead over Beely. D.Va is doing a very, very good job on the LeBlanc. Got a 2-level lead as well. D.Va is miles ahead of Beely right now. And its ability to one-shot Proxy is technically still there.
Well, it's got a little bit harder because we now see the Hex Drinker from Proxy, so making things a little bit more difficult. Again, I like that. I think its defensive should be picked up. I personally was a fan of the Aegis, but this makes sense too. Engage coming in.
They're jumping in. Wild Growth Flash gets used, and now Demise just look to turn this around. Ashe Arrow comes in, and Jeppe, his health bar is just being obliterated. The railgun gets fired. As Rifty comes to join into the team, DBL slams one back, throws out the Haymaker, but Rifty's able to tidy this one up. D.Va, you might be ahead, but you're still going to get shut down by Proxy. Demise just playing this game incredibly clean, considering how close it was yesterday for them.
I mean, it's just a simple matter. If Munster can't find the backline access, if they don't kill the carries, they lose. We were talking about how this could have been Soul for Munster. If Munster had 4 dragons here, they would already have Ocean Soul. That is what they needed as a win condition, and now it is becoming extremely difficult. Ultimately, they had a dragon in 40 seconds. If they got that, you know, maybe they could have had a Soul even if they had 3 already, but they're so far behind in dragons. They're so far behind in terms of scaling. This is Demise's Baron are taken. After this, it becomes incredibly difficult for Munster.
And they can also just quickly rotate, go for base, spend the gold from that last team fight, and just bum rush bot lane and go get the Ocean.
Yeah, CBF sword picked up by Proxy. Beely only really able to finish the Codex, but again, it doesn't really matter too much. Redemption for Chromax, just making things even more difficult. And they can now head over this dragon and force Munster away. Munster can't fight this. They are down 6,000 gold and the stats from Baron. And again, if they don't kill this backline, they just lose. D.Va needs to find a miracle flank, but with a Lulu Orianna protecting the Ashe, it's just not happening.
Jeppe's been spotted out. Proxy doesn't have the cleanse, but the Wild Growth's back up and available. It just feels incredibly hard. Rifty jumps in forward, does have that Cyclone available. That's the third Ocean Dragon picked up with Demise. Shockwave lands onto the backline, and Rifty instantly fires out as the Ashe Arrow comes down. Jeppe's in the mix of the backline, but he has no backup, no one to help him as Beely takes out D.Va. Proxy takes out Jeppe, and Blue Spirits is taken down for a double kill picked up by Beely. Just flawless team fighting from Demise, and they're going to look to crack open the base. They've got Baron, they've got double Ocean. This is feeling pretty much done for Munster.
Yeah, I mean, it is over at this point. I don't think there's going to be time for them to spawn up defend. This is only No Name, and they have Baron minions to push in. Demise with a dominating win, in all honesty, against our, well, they were our #1 team, but after this, they will be tied up. Munster, yeah, that's the last member down. Demise is going to look at the end here.
29 minutes on the clock, and Demise put on a dominating performance, put on a statement game versus the #1 seed in the groups, taking them and dethroning them from the top spot at the UKLC, and even putting them in the position where they might not even make playoffs off the back of that. Demise, that was beautiful.
Yeah, and it could make first place extremely difficult. Even if they do make playoffs, if London win, they can't get first place. They are locked out of it. So a massive win to deny Munster, but also for Demise. I think we are seeing a team who are really going to be a massive threat in playoffs. We saw really strong performances across the board. I think the critical thing for me was the fact that they picked this scaling composition with great team fighting. They didn't sit back. One of the biggest criticisms I have of scaling teams is when they sit back and do nothing and expect the game to be handed on them. Demise didn't make that mistake. They challenged Munster in the early game, and they did a great job of it. They didn't overreach. Well, there was that one time, but for the most part, they played around where they had strength, and they ended up coming out massively ahead, and then Munster had no options available to them. Extremely difficult for them to come back in that game, and it raises a lot of questions because this is the second time this week that we've seen Munster really struggle trying to execute on an early game composition, trying to play a composition with early win cons, and their goal is to stomp lane, transition that into a win. And we saw a similar thing yesterday where they actually had a really significant lead, and I felt like this should have been their game to take, and they just ended up being unable to do so against Envision. Envision were 5k gold down at one point, and yet they managed to come back. So this is such a bad time for this to be happening. We're about to go into playoffs. You've just had your last game in the season, and suddenly your strategy for the split is failing. So
Yeah.
Munster have to wait for the results of today, but they may not make in the playoffs. But even if they do, there's a lot of questions to be asked.
A 0-2 week on the final week when everything is this close for Munster is devastating for them. And a lot of teams are starting to find their form. M&M really starting to step up to the plate. Demise have been just on a complete tear for the last few weeks. It is worrying if you're on the side of Munster now, and your fate is now out of their hands. Like this is not in their hands anymore. It's very reliant on our last 3 games to see how they're gonna do. I worry if I'm Munster right now because they look so clean and look so locked in, but it's just falling apart.
The thing is, right? I'm looking at the rest of the games, and you think, okay, the next 3 games have to go in a certain direction for Munster to be knocked out of playoffs. But it's like Envision against Bulldogs, so one of our playoff contenders against a team with no wins. Enclave against London, who have looked pretty significant for a lot of the split, and Enclave who have looked quite rough, just came off they're now on a 3-loss streak, I believe. So again, not a great one. And then M&M against Bras, which is again one of our playoff contenders against our 7th place team. So these matches, all 3 of them have to go a certain way. And obviously with that, there's always a bit of, well, it's not super likely, but these are stacked against Munster. And it would be crazy to see Munster not making playoffs on the back of this game, but it could happen, and it's going to depend on today.
Well, that was honestly an incredible way to start the day of everyone being tied up. We're going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back, we actually have Chromax standing by for an interview. We'll see you in a second. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the UKLC. We actually have Chromax standing by for an interview after the last game. Chromax, can you hear me? How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hello.
How do you feel after that win? You got a win over the team who've been standing at the top for the whole time. You've actually opened up now 4 spots in playoffs from what would have been 3. This has got to feel really good getting that win.
Yeah, it feels really good. Also, we won now 6 games in a row, so everything is looking really good. So yeah, we're really happy.
Awesome.
I want to talk to you a little bit about you and Proxy. We spoke to him yesterday and a lot of praise for you. And obviously, you guys have played together a lot before. What do you think makes you so good as a duo?
I think we are I don't think we ever lose a bot lane. So I think for our teammates it's really good because we don't need much resources. So especially when we have Rifty, we can just like totally ignore bot. We will be ahead in CS or even killing them. So it's just I think we feel really good on bot, and it's good that our team we can play around other teammates because we don't need much attention, and we will still be ahead.
Awesome. I want to play a little bit of a prediction game with you here because now that you've opened up this 4 spots, what 4 teams do you think are going to make it to playoffs? Let's not take numbers on like 1, 2, 3, 4, but like what 4 teams do you think are the top 4 teams in the league that will go to playoffs?
I mean, to be honest, I think the only team that could maybe go even with us, it's actually Envision. I rate Envision, to be honest. And the other teams is like Munster probably, but even them, I don't know. So if I would have to predict, I would go for Envision, London, Munster, and us.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I wanted to ask you a bit more about sort of you being in the UK scene. How's it felt playing in the UKLC this split compared to say the EBL, which you played in previously?
I mean, it's different. I also didn't expect that games will be. I mean, the teams that will be that close to each other, to be honest. Because in EBL we had like 3 teams that are like strong and others are like kind of bad. So I mean, it's kind of good to see that here teams are almost all kind of even.
Have
and then
you
Bulldog.
Bulldog, unfortunately. Have you set yourself like a personal goal this split? Do you think that you've hit that personal goal, or what has been your goal coming into the UKLC summer season?
I mean, the goal was to win it all. It was really unlucky that we had like a period of losing games, I think. But my goal was to win. Yeah.
That's a fair enough goal. Thank you very much for joining us on the
you.
interview, Chromax, and congratulations on your win. Good luck for everything coming up. It's a little out of your hands, but you've put yourself in a very good stead and a very good position to actually make it to playoffs. So congratulations on that, and hopefully we'll be speaking to you again soon. See you later, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
See ya.
Awesome, guys. We're going to be getting ready to go into our second game of the day. It's Bulldog versus Envision. It might sound like there's not a lot on the line. This is 0-13 versus a team who are 8-5, but this is important for Envision. They need to find this win. So we'll see you after the break for game number 2.